everyone, welcome back to KandidKayla.com. My name is Michaela, the content creator behind KandidKayla.com, a platform where I help us become the best we that we can be, with the ultimate goal to grow ourselves, for ourselves, and in ourselves. So today we're going to talk all about our wellness plan. It's going to be a bit of an involved video, so I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. So first things first, if you haven't seen the first two bits of information regarding wellness on our platform this week, I recommend that you go back and you review those before coming to this video. There is a bit of overlap, however, I won't be talking in such great detail about those two posts. So the first being understanding that wellness is different from person to person, and the second being a blog post about how to define wellness for yourself and how to understand when you are not well. I will leave the links to both of those in the description box below. So a little bit about me before we go into how to build a wellness plan. I intentionally started my wellness journey a little over a year ago. I had bits and pieces of wellness throughout my life. However, a year ago, my body completely shut down because I was overworked, overstressed, and wasn't taking care of myself in the way that I needed to. And as a result, a wellness plan was necessary for me. So I worked with my mom, as well as my counselor, as well as my boss, and everybody around me in order to put a system in place to ensure that I stay well. So that's essentially all a wellness plan is. It's you having this internal dialogue with yourself on how it is that you keep yourself on the straight and narrow and keep yourself feeling well. That's why I said you need to go back and reread those previous resources on your definition of wellness, because that will determine how you end up ultimately putting together your wellness plan. So what exactly is a wellness plan? A wellness plan, like I said, is just a living, breathing document that documents how you plan on keeping yourself well. So depending on your definition of wellness will depend on, again, how you fill this information out. So with that being said, I decided to do a bit of an exercise today. We're going to go through how I actually build a wellness plan for myself and put it on paper. Now, for each of you, this is going to be different. For some people, especially men, they don't typically like to write things down or journal things down when it comes to a wellness plan. So the biggest thing for you would just be internally having that conversation for yourself and making sure that it's documented somewhere. So let's go ahead and get started.
So I just like to write my information down digitally using my iPad, but it works perfectly fine with a pen and paper. This is more so of a personal thing, so if you're not the write it down kind of person, then don't. But I know a lot of people do like to write it down, and for the sake of wellness, I think it's definitely a great idea to write everything down just so that when you're not well, you don't have a reason and or an excuse to tell yourself that you're well if you're not well. Also, when you're not well, it's easy to go look at what you had to say to yourself about yourself rather than having to remember. So with that being said, I just start off in my notebook, just label it the top wellness plan. It's important that you have a last updated area where you know the last time that this was updated, because sometimes you will change, and so you want to make sure that you have the most recent information there. Also, depending on what platform you're looking at and things like that, they will also tell you to have somebody notarize it and say like, hey, I'm giving such and such X and Y power over myself if I'm unwell or if something happens to me. You can put all that in there if you want to, but this is just the very basics of what a wellness plan is in an effort for you to jumpstart your wellness journey. So I will leave a space for the table of contents. The first page being, what am I like when I'm well? I would go through the blog posts that I put online in order to define your version of wellness and what you are like when you are well. The second thing is, what am I like when I'm not well? Again, I'll link the blog post to that in the description box. You're more than welcome to go through that on your own. So then moving forward, I just create a new page and we'll call this our wellness plan. So then the first thing I like to do is to take into account my self-awareness. What do I have to do in order to make sure that I am self aware of myself? For some people, you can definitely skip right over this, especially if you are hyper self aware when you are not well. But for me, when I'm not well, I go numb. I feel like nothing can hurt me, nothing can bother me. And so I have to be intentional about doing what I need to do in order to make sure that I still feel and still have emotion. So for me, that would be a self date by which I just take time for myself. The second thing I would tend to do is maybe listen to music, journal, slash write poetry. Again, mine won't be the same as yours. So whatever it is that you have to do, if you have to do it in order to be self-aware, I would write that down. The second thing here that needs a wellness plan is my spiritual life. What do you need to do in order to practice spiritual wellness for yourself? And what do you need to do in order to ground yourself spiritually? So, whether that be meditation, praying, reading books, reading your Bible, it's honestly just up to you. So, for me, that's going to be prayer, fasting, Jesus dates, where I have these powwows with him and I literally just talk to him. I'm going to put beside prayer intercessory. So I like to specify what kind of prayer that I'm going to have for the day. So whether that be intercessory or thanks. And so I just put both there just to kind of remind myself. Lastly, I'm going to put Bible study and sermon. So the next thing is your mental. And so, what is it that you need to do in order to ensure that you stay mentally well? I like to split this up into two different categories. What checks and balances do you put in place? And then what do you actually physically need to do in order to stay afloat? So, if we're talking checks and balances, right, that would be how to make sure that you are always keeping track of your mental wellness. And so for me, the checks and balances would be journaling, surveying my journaling. So if my journaling is particularly dark, then I know that I'm taking a turn. Again, Jesus dates, those self dates I was talking about. But to take it a step further, going to counseling, speaking with my therapist, having an outside neutral party have a clue into what's going on with my mind, that definitely helps. It gives me an opportunity to get an outside opinion and or outside direction on my thought process. My therapist can tell when I'm about to take a turn for the worse before even I do. And not saying that she knows me better than I know myself, but a lot of times when you're on the outside of a conversation, and when we're talking about wellness here, we're talking about this internal conversation that you have with yourself in order to achieve balance in yourself. A lot of times, having that outside perspective brings in new clarity as to if you are doing well or if you're not doing so well. And another checks and balance is my cleaning schedule. Am I staying on top of my cleaning schedule? Do I feel as though my house is clean? Because if it's not, that is a subtle telltale sign that I am about to lose it because I do not do well in untidy spaces. And so then the second part would be, how do I keep myself afloat? So, actual activities. For me, that would be again cleaning. Cleaning is a great way for me to clear my mind. Exercise, in particular, cardio. Again, counseling and dancing. For you, it might be different. So, for you, what it takes in order for you to stay afloat might be coloring or journaling, or I'm trying to think of some other ones. Playing golf, riding a bicycle, getting involved with other people, like going out and talking to other people. To each his own. What is it that you need to do in order to make sure that you are checking on your mental wellness, as well as what are you doing in order to maintain your mental wellness? The next thing would be your emotional. Emotional wellness and mental wellness are nearly one and the same. However, I like to separate them just because a lot of times my mental wellness is not equivalent to my emotional wellness. I can be very, very numb, but my mind be extremely sharp. And I think that that goes to the fact that I'm more of an intellectual than I am like a feeler. I don't typically cry unless I'm like really, really not okay. So, with that being said, my emotional wellness takes a lot more effort for me than my mental wellness. So, rather than setting it up as checks and balances and activities, for me, it's just simply activities because I have to do the work on my emotional wellness. Um, there is really no checks and balances for my emotional wellness. So, what I like to do is have a good cry, clean, and talk through my emotions. Now, for you, you might be hyper emotional and hypersensitive emotionally. And in that case, I think that you should have your checks and balances here and not necessarily in the mental category. But this is just an example from myself of how I ensure that I stay okay. And a lot of things that I do are repetitive. A lot of things that maintain my wellness in the mental capacity extend over to the spiritual and the self aware and the emotional and everything else. Like everything kind of bleeds together. And I think that's the theme here. Your wellness is all encompassing. So there's not necessarily one specific thing that you do in order to help that one area that's not going to bleed into those other areas. So, almost done here. Last few areas. Number 5, physically. 1, I take my medication as prescribed. I take my vitamins and probiotics. I exercise at least 3 times a day. 3 times a week. I ensure that I'm intaking a healthy diet. That might mean different things to different people. Going to kickbacks and ensuring that I moisturize my skin. Kickbacks and calling people seems like it might not be a physical task, but it is for me. My physical body is overall better when I remember things. Okay, so number 6 is relational. So going on friend dates, going on dates, calling people, going to church, and even when I don't have time to call people, making sure that I get those check-ins in. So relational wellness is literally taking time for my relationship. Okay, financial. This is just very basic for me, so there's no bullet. All I have to do is keep on my budget. For some people, you might have to do different things. If eating out is something you struggle with, then I will put no eating out under here. If spending money on hair products or video games or whatever is your thing, like I will put that there. Lastly, and surely not least, would be work slash school wellness. Some people might need this, some people might not. If you just go to work and that's it, that's good for you, then cool beans. But for me, work takes up my life. I am in grad school, I am getting a PhD, and so it is kind of all that I do without it being all that I do, if that makes any sense. I try to ensure that I have a great, not good, but an exceptional, a great work life balance. First thing on here is work life balance. The second thing would be ensuring that I wear my blue light glasses. Just helps with the headaches because I am in front of a screen 90% of the day. I do not work longer than 12-hour days. I also do work splits. What that means is I just split my workday up. Instead of doing one full day, I typically do 3 different 4-hour blocks for a regular work day. Depending on what I have going on will depend on what my work days look like. I do 90-day work sections, similar to the time splits like I was talking about. I do 90 days going hard, like I said, with those like 12-hour work days, 6 days a week, and then I will ensure that I have some sort of vacation after 90 days. So, whether that be a staycation, an actual take me somewhere vacation, I'm doing something that does not require school, does not require my brain to function or me to have responsibility. And last thing, I just ensure that I reward myself for everything, even the smallest little things, because all of it matters. Like, I'm in grad school, every little thing matters, every part of me matters.
So now that you've seen how I more or less build my own wellness plan, now I would like to close with some very important details. So like I said in the beginning of this video, and I've been stressing throughout the entirety of this video, building your wellness plan is a completely individualized journey. It's not something that just happens overnight. It's taken me a year to get to this place in my wellness plan, and it's definitely not perfect. I still have stressors that don't fit within my wellness plan that I still have to amend my wellness plan for. And I definitely don't go back and look at my wellness plan as often as maybe I should, but it is a useful tool. So, in me not looking at my wellness plan as often as I probably should, I do have a system by which I do make sure that I'm good. So like I said, I do each of those activities on that wellness plan, but I also have key things that are important to me. And as long as those stay important to me, the rest of my wellness plan I don't really have to go and physically look at. So again, thank you so much for sitting through this video. I hope it was informational for you, and I hope that it encouraged some of you guys to start on your wellness journey. Next week, we are going to be talking about how to actually put systems in place besides your wellness plan, but how to actually enact your wellness plan, work on that wellness plan, try different things if you don't know what makes you feel well, how to actually jumpstart yourself and try different things to get you to a place where you actually can put systems in place to ensure that you are well. So until next week, thanks guys. Bye.